Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. A quick warning before we begin. In today's first story there is mention of child abuse, so if that is a topic that makes you uncomfortable, you may want to skip the story. Now let's get started. This post is from the subreddit entitled Parents and it's by user Dr. Oogie Boogie 42. Entitled Stepmonster got herself banned from my wedding. My 28 male stepmother, 49 female, is a wannabe party planner. She has taken it upon herself to plan and host every party and holiday my dad's family has thrown since she married him. I never loved those occasions growing up. She's controlling and gets upset if people complain about anything, but humored her for my dad's sake. According to him, this helps her feel included. I'm getting married to my fiancée Jane, 26 female, in July. We got engaged in early 2021, but Jane ended up getting pregnant a couple of months after that, and we decided to postpone the wedding to focus on our son for a while. So we've had a long engagement. My stepmother has tried to hijack our wedding plans from day one, complaining, contacting our planner, showing up unannounced to Jane's dress appointments, etc. And we have repeatedly asked her to stop. Dad wants us to humor her, but she's clearly resentful of the fact that she's not hosting the wedding or being labeled mother of the groom in invitations. Besides our baby boy, we also have Luke, 4 male, Jane's paternal half-brother. She got custody of him a few months into our relationship after his parents died. I ended up moving in with them during the pandemic and have been in Luke's life since he was a baby. He doesn't call me dad and refers to us as his sister and his OP, but we love him like a son. Stepmother, though, hates Luke. She accuses Jane of baby trapping her way into the family. That accusation only got worse after our son was born. My dad gets along with Jane and adores the kids, but stepmother demands that he refuse to babysit Luke, so we don't leave the kids with them often. Instead, Jane's brother and sister-in-law usually watch the kids for us, as their children are close to ours in age. Now, we had a thing last Sunday, and my brother-in-law was out of town with his family. Jane's other siblings live in different cities, as well as my mom and sister. My dad agreed to babysit at our place and we left. We came back to find both kids crying, stepmother screaming, and dad weakly trying to calm everyone down. Apparently, Luke had told stepmother that both he and our son were going to be our ring bearers, and she went ballistic. She screamed that she wasn't going to allow that because he wasn't family. She then smacked him when he started crying. His lip is still split. She'd never gotten to this point before. We immediately banned her from our house and from our wedding. Dad is fuming and has said he's not going without her. He's also convinced half of his side of the family, by severely downplaying what stepmother did, to boycott the wedding as well. This includes my stepbrother, who fully agrees with his mother no matter how many times I try to tell him the truth. We did press charges though. We took Luke to the pediatrician the next day and gathered every piece of evidence we had. Not only did we have pictures of Luke's face, but by some miraculous stroke of luck, we also had nanny cam footage. Jane and I are refusing to budge, but many of my cousins who aren't coming anymore are asking us to reconsider. Pretty much all of Jane's family agrees with us, but one of her aunts has suggested that maybe stepmother is acting out because she doesn't feel welcomed by my family. I've honestly had it with my family enabling her behavior. I love my dad and really want him at my wedding, but I am more than willing to go no contact if it means protecting my family. Well, of course, OP, I absolutely agree with you. You are doing the right thing. Your stepmother, wow, what a crappy kind of person. And your dad, weak as F. Here's what I would do if I was in your shoes, just to get your family on the right page, and then also, if you want, cut contact with all of them. I would just send them a message telling them exactly what stepmother did. Something like, "Dear family, stepmother has been banned from my wedding and our life because she physically abused a 4-year-old child. She broke his skin after he excitedly told her that he was going to be our ring bearer. We, of course, are appalled and filed charges. If you condone, support, or downplay this action, just know that you are also not invited to the wedding. And to your dad, I would send him the same message and additionally tell him that you're incredibly disappointed in him. And then just move on and go celebrate your wedding. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? What would you continue to do if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Maria Lind says, I'm sorry, she split the lip of a crying 4-year-old, lost control of herself over an innocent statement from little more than a toddler, and your father's reaction wasn't to throw her out of the house and get her away from the children? You can't trust either of them with the kids. Sorry for your dad, but he made his choice. He's earned no contact. Ask your cousins how they would feel if she split the lip of one of their kids. The bastard Henry says, she'd have gotten much worse than banned from the wedding if I'd come home to find my kid literally bleeding because of her striking him. I wouldn't budge on this. She's not acting out because she doesn't feel included. She's a narcissistic a-hole throwing tantrums because she doesn't get what she wants. I wouldn't blame you going totally no contact either. Your cousins asking you to reconsider are totally out of line. Wild Personality 8897 says, your dad watched her hit your kid and is on her side. I'd go no contact with dad and stepmother. Tell everyone that got the sanitized version that they heard a version that wasn't true and they need to respect your choices and your boundaries. I'm so sorry this happened, especially to little Luke. The comment about not being family is the thing that will replay in his head for years to come. Poor little guy. Cry face. Additional information from OP's comments. The only reason why I know that this is the first time she's hit him is because this was the first and last time she was with the kids unsupervised. Jane and I were around every previous time she saw Luke. She didn't want my dad to babysit him and would only ask him to on a few occasions before. My sister was still living with them at the time and has assured me that Luke was never out of her sight. I know and trust my sister enough to believe her. First time or not, I will not give her a second chance. She'll never hurt either of my kids again. Now, Jane can fight very well actually. She's done jujitsu. She's 5'4" and I'd fear for my life if I'd pissed her off, but got busy tending to Luke. I can also fight and was more than ready to, but neither of us wanted the kids to see us like that. Pretty much every adult in the house was screaming for a few minutes and we didn't want it to get scarier. Jane also threatened to call the cops, which prompted dad and stepmother to leave. Finally, regarding Luke, it's not that we don't let him call us mom and dad. Jane loved their father and Luke lost him and his mom before his first birthday, so she does her best to make sure he knows who they were and that they loved him. It's our way to keep them in his life. If Luke ever wants to call us mom and dad, we'll definitely welcome it, but right now he likes knowing he has so many people who love him, and he also loves bragging to his friends about being an uncle. But I'm pretty sure he sees us as his parents. OP's edit. Some commenters were right to assume that my stepmother hadn't been invited to our house, but my dad hasn't really gone anywhere without her in years, so we took precautions. We didn't expect her to actually do anything this awful, but we've never trusted her with the kids. The physical attack happened off camera, but there is some footage of her screaming and Luke crying before and after the event. She now has a child abuse charge on her rap sheet. We wouldn't let her get away with this. Edit 2. There is a lot of additional information I want to add. I'll try to respond to at least some of the comments. I did not expect the amount I've gotten so far, but all I'll add for now is that Luke is okay. The visit to the pediatrician happened the day after. He already had a counselor. Jane was pretty traumatized when her dad and stepmom died and was worried it would rub off on him, and will continue treatment. We've been hugging and pampering him a little more than usual too. He's still upset, but is already doing much better. Alright, so stepmom now has a rap sheet, and the good thing is that Luke is doing better. Now, OP has given us 2 updates to this story, so let's continue with the first one, but of course before that, you know that here's another one of my playlists with all updated videos for you to enjoy after this one. Now, let's move on with the update. I want to thank everyone who took the time to read and/or comment on my previous post. This might get a little long. I'll start off by saying that Jane and I are going no contact with my dad and stepmother. We haven't really spoken to either of them since the incident, and I don't plan on being the one to reach out. Any communication between us is being handled by my younger sister. She's completely on our side but will remain in low contact for the time being. I've decided to adopt Jane's way of dealing with people she cares about. Forgive what's apologized for, but never forget. Basically, if dad and stepmom ever truly understand what they did wrong and sincerely apologize, we're willing to forgive them, even if begrudgingly so. But we will never ignore or let them forget what they did to our family. And for the time being, neither of them will be allowed near Luke or our baby and any other kids we may have in the future, even if we do forgive them. As for the rest of my family, I read a lot of comments suggesting that I post pictures of Luke's face as well as the nanny cam footage. I'm not very active on social media, but even if I was, I'm not comfortable exposing my injured preschooler like that, especially given that nothing on the internet ever truly goes away. I also decided not to share the pictures with my family unless truly necessary. I should probably mention that while my family adores my dad, most of them aren't fond of stepmother. She had 2 failed marriages prior to meeting my father, the first of which resulted in my stepbrother, and he cheated on his then girlfriend to be with her. My family loved that girlfriend and disliked stepmother right away. Not only has she been controlling and manipulative since the beginning, but she's also tried to force her way into the family matriarch role by any means possible. Taking over planning duties for every family event was her favorite way to do it, because of all the attention and compliments that would come with it. The main reason why I hated these parties growing up was that she'd always find a way to make everything about her, including Christmas and my sister's birthdays. The rest of the family felt neutral about it, but they never liked her. With Luke, it was different. Most of my relatives didn't meet him until COVID restrictions got looser, and by then he was 2 years old. He's a bright and genuinely lovable kid, and there weren't any other small children in the family, so everyone immediately started cooing over him. The way I see it, stepmother got upset that Jane and Luke were accepted by my family so easily compared to her experience, and that's why she resents them both. But I can't confirm that. She was also mad that, aside from not being the planner, she would have absolutely no involvement in the wedding party. She tried to pressure us into letting her officiate. One of Jane's best friends was offered that role a year ago. Making stepbrother my best man. He wasn't interested and I'd already gotten my best friend. Or asking her sister's daughter to be our flower girl. We'd promised Jane's 3-year-old niece. Also, her sister's daughter is 15 and doesn't know us. She also tried to convince us to let my dad walk Jane down the aisle since her father was gone, but her oldest brother, the brother-in-law I mentioned in the first post, had already been enlisted. Stepmother was disappointed that my family wasn't as involved in the wedding as Jane's and kept making comments about how that would never happen if we put her in charge. All of that being said, there is nothing that can excuse being that awful to a child, especially if it really is the petty jealousy that I suspect. Because I haven't spoken with my father, my sister has been keeping me updated on what he's been up to. As I found out through her, the story my dad and stepmom told the rest of the family completely erases Luke's injury and the abuse charges. It insinuates that Jane and I banned them because we got annoyed with stepmother and decided to take it out on my dad as well. Because most people already disliked stepmother, explaining what actually happened that night wasn't hard, and most of the relatives that I actually wanted at the wedding have apologized and are berating my dad as well. The people that didn't believe us, as well as those saying we overreacted, have been told they are not welcome in our home anymore. Those are mostly people from my dad's generation, so I can't say I'm surprised. But the realization that they are so biased they're willing to protect a woman they hate after she hurt a child just to make my dad happy has reassured me that I don't need any of them in my life. Stepbrother is still in denial. He refuses to believe his mother could hurt a child, even with all the evidence we have. I have to admit, I understand. I love my mom too, but that doesn't mean I'd excuse his obliviousness. So he's banned too. It sucks because we were close growing up, but I don't regret it. Besides, Jane has 3 other siblings besides Luke, the older brother-in-law, a twin brother, and a younger sister, and I'm closer to them than I ever was with him. Speaking of Jane's family, they're all furious over what happened and have been extremely supportive of us. Jane's maternal family basically adopted Luke after she got custody of him and have called frequently to make sure he's okay. We did manage to save some money from everybody we uninvited and have decided to use it to help Jane's cousin. She lives in a different country and was previously unable to come to the wedding, so we're paying for her plane ticket. Luke has gotten much better and is almost completely back to being the sunny child he's always been. The split lip was shallow, it's healing slowly but didn't require any stitches. We sat him down a few days ago and explained that my dad and stepmom wouldn't be around anymore. He really liked my dad but understands that he and stepmom are attached at the hip. He's clearly scared of her, but we're doing our best to make him feel safe. Jane and I have reassured him that he is family, we love him, and no one will ever change that. I'm not too worried about dad or stepmom trying to show up at the wedding, but we've alerted the venue and given them pictures just in case they try anything. Better safe than sorry. Also, some people brought attention to the fact that stepmom is a hypocrite for saying Luke isn't family. I agree for obvious reasons. Her main excuse for pretty much everything she does is that she doesn't feel like my family welcomes her. Dad has been guilting me to take part in everything she plans by reminding us of that for as long as I can remember. The way he continues to make excuses for her without realizing that this is basically a case of the pot calling the kettle black, except Luke is actually family, is what has made me accept that while I will always love my dad, it's not healthy or safe for me and my family to be around him anymore. It hurts to know my son won't have his only remaining bio-grandfather in his life, but he has two amazing step-grandpas to make up for it. For now, I'm sad, but satisfied with how things have turned out. I love my fiancé, I love my kids, and I'm lucky enough to love my job. We're happy. I'm not letting anyone ruin that. Well, it sounds like Opie and his fiancé have a solid grip on everything and things are moving forward. So now let's move on with the final update to see how this story ends. I'll start off by probably disappointing a lot of people. We're coming to terms with the fact that it's unlikely stepmother will get anything more than a slap on the wrist. Jane and I are discussing our next move with our lawyer, but we're still not sure how we're going to move forward. It's too early to tell anyway, so we're trying not to get ahead of ourselves any more than we already have. However, I'm relieved to announce that we're getting started on the process for a restraining order against stepmother. We're using the same evidence we gathered the week following the incident, including the nanny cam footage and pictures of Luke, and we'll focus on that for the time being. I still haven't spoken to my father. My sister is still low contact but is seriously considering cutting ties with him. Because my sister is the only one on my side that still talks to him, my father keeps trying to ask her about me and whether I've calmed down yet. According to her, he's annoyed that half of his family refuses to talk to him but still doesn't seem to accept why. I told my sister that she doesn't need to keep playing messenger pigeon between me and our father. I never asked her to do it and it's clearly taking a toll on her, but she insists she'll stop when it feels right. By the way, there is absolutely no doubt that stepmother attacked Luke. Not only did Luke say it the moment we got home, but that was also confirmed by my father in a failed attempt to defend her behavior. He never tried to hide it from us. That, and the fact that he gave Luke a nice bag, is literally the only positive thing I can say about his actions. And stepmother was too busy screaming about how much of a whining brat Luke was being to deny it. Both our kids are doing mostly okay. Luke's back to running around the house in a Superman costume whenever he doesn't have anything better to do. He did have a few nightmares this past week and has asked to sleep on our bed twice. We don't mention my father around him and he's still seeing his counselor. Our 14-month-old son has learned 2 new words, hi and bye, and Luke is trying to teach him to say his name. Jane's sister, who moved away for college, is coming over for a couple of days to celebrate her 21st birthday later this month. Luke's excited to see her and Jane's excited to get drunk with her. I can't say I blame her. We're hoping her presence will cheer us all up. We're not doing so well since all of this happened. It breaks my heart to see her like that and I can't help but feel like this is all my fault. There's a part of me trying to tell me that I had no way of knowing stepmom would do anything like that, but that doesn't really change anything. I allowed my father near my kids unsupervised, even though I knew she'd probably tag along. This is the guiltiest I've ever felt, and I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. Jane has been improving lately and is trying to convince me to see a therapist. I've never really done that before apart from a psychiatrist when I was younger, but now feels like a good time to give it a try. I was surprised by a few messages this week from people telling me to forgive my father and stepmother, as well as re-invite them to the wedding. That's not happening. In fact, I'm not willing to ever forgive stepmother. My dad has now degraded to a huge maybe, but I will never understand or forget what she did. Also, though the wedding is the last thing on our minds right now, we're not postponing it. We considered rescheduling, but the date we'd settle on is pretty much the only one that works for our guests. We have passwords with all our vendors and gave them all clear instructions not to talk to anyone but us. Jane's family is bigger and closer to each other, which is why they're more involved in the wedding than mine, but I do have family participating. My sister is one of the bridesmaids. 2 of my cousins are groomsmen, and my mom is walking down the aisle with the wedding party. Going through all of this with Jane has made me understand even more just how much I love this woman. I couldn't ask for a better partner to start a family with, and I have no idea what I'd do without her. This didn't tear us apart, and I couldn't be more thankful. Willoughby, I'm gonna call this a positive update, almost happy. You guys are almost there. You just need a little bit of help to be able to get over this. You don't need to forget it, of course, but you need to try to work through it. So here's wishing the 4 of you the best in the future, and I hope that your wedding is awesome. Take care, OP, and thank you for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.